Journal Club India chapter. I welcome you all. And today's presentation is Dr. Prasad Dilip Pandkar, sir. I would like to introduce him in a brief. Dr. Pandkar is Pune-based academician and clinician of Ayurveda. He works as associate professor in Ayurveda physiology, that is Sharir Kriya, at Bharati Vidyapit, Dim University College. He is university authorized PG and PhD guide for Ayurveda physiology. He is clinician at Dr. Pandkar's Prana Ayurveda Multispecialty Clinic and Panchakarma Center, Pune as well as Mumbai. He is also associated with Sri Vishwavati Ayurveda Chikitsalaya and Research Center at Kolhapur as a chief consultant for research and development. As an academician, he is working for various research projects as well as academic projects. Out of those, 3 are in pipeline, and he has delivered more than 20 lectures as a resource person in various conferences as well as workshops. He is reviewer for some prominent peer-reviewed network, and today he is presenting a unique article which is talking about tridosha theory as a whole. And we would like to know about his inputs on how to critically appraise this article on this Journal Club platform. The topic for today's article, the title is If Systems Approach is the Way Forward, What Can the Ayurvedic Theory of Tridosha Teach Us? This article is published in Current Science and authored by Rama Jayasundar Madam. Over to you, Prasad, sir. Hello. I request Prasad sir to start his presentation. Hello. Hello. Sir, your mic is mute.
Hello.
Sir, your voice is slightly low, but now you are audible.
Okay, now it is audible.
Yes, sir. Slightly voice is very low, sir.
Okay.
You need to put the mic maybe. The speaker should maybe slightly away. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The screen is visible?
Yes, sir. You need to put it on full screen. Yes, yes. Screen is visible.
Hello?
Yeah, you're audible, sir.
Hello?
Hello, you're audible, sir.
Hello?
Sir, you are audible. You can talk, sir.
Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir. Screen is visible. You just need to put it on the slideshow mode.
PPT is visible, no? Whole screen. Mic is on. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, I will start. Okay, so good evening, gentlemen and ladies, and my overseas counterparts, whoever are Ayurveda enthusiasts and those are interested in traditional medicine and particularly Ayurveda. In this journal club meeting, we will be talking about this beautiful paper if systems approach is the way forward, what can the Ayurvedic theory of tridosha teach us? It is a paper published in Current Science by Professor Ramajaya Sundar, who is presently professor at Department of NMR AIMS, New Delhi. And my name, as already introduced by ma'am, I'm Dr. Prasad Pandkar. I'm an Ayurvedic clinician and academician belonging to the faculty of or the Department of Ayurvedic Physiology. Disclaimer to start with, this presentation is for academic purpose to understand the methods of critically appraising some scientific manuscript. It by no means intend to harm or criticize investigators or all the persons associated with the manuscript. The views expressed herewith are totally with the sole academic purpose, and presenter has no way any kind of conflict of interest with this manuscript. Let us start with this.
Sir, may I interrupt,
In this
please?
presentation, we will be going like reasons for this article selection or how this article is relevant for today's situation. Then we will summarize briefly, we will take a brief review of that article. Then there is a method that actually analysis of figures and tables from the paper. Actually, this is more applicable to
Sir,
original researches, and
hello?
however, this is a review paper or
Hello?
not only review paper, but some, hello?
Sir, your
Hello?
screen is not moving. The slides are not moving, sir. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. Is there a slide of critical appraisal points?
No, sir, it is
If that is
still
not
on
in
the
front,
title slide, sir.
please.
It is still on the title slide.
But I have moved on actually.
Maybe you need to put it on the presentation mode.
Yes, it is on slideshow. Na?
Yes, sir, please.
Now it is second slide, disclaimer slide.
Not yet, sir. Participants can just put a chat message if it is visible from their end. That will be helpful. Okay. Screen is not visible, sir. Maybe you need to just start on and off again slideshow.
I'm getting a blank screen, someone is saying.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Maybe you need to stop share and again share the screen, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe that there must be some lagging.
So I'm here now sharing a window, Journal Club, my PPT, and here I'm sharing it.
Participants can just put it in the chat box. Yeah, now title slide is visible, sir.
Slide?
It will come. Maybe there must be some lagging. It is on the title slide.
I'm on second slide. Now I am on third slide. Is it?
Not yet. The title slide is visible, sir.
Is it second or third slide there?
It is only first visible. First slide is visible. Can participants confirm that? Title slide is visible. Hello.
Actually
I
at
think there is
second
some
and third
network
slide.
problem, sir. Yeah, now you can just put it on the slideshow. Is it visible now? Sir, you can just stop sharing and again share it. I think it is stuck somewhere.
Because it is not a journal belonging to medical fraternity, but it is the publication of Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, which is the most prominent science education institute in India based at Bangalore. Now coming to reasons for article selection or how this paper is relevant. Next slide, please. So this paper is relevant, and how should we discuss this and why should we discuss this? It is simply because at the title itself is mentioning that if systems approach is the way forward, what can Ayurvedic theory of tridosha teach us? So if you just split this title, it is talking about systems approach, and this is the future of medicine, this is the future of science. And with this approach, author is not comparing, I won't say comparing, but author is putting a light on Ayurvedic concept of tridosha theory. So this is an important attempt to readdress the tridosha theory, which is very pivotal, which is very basic, which is very at the heart of, at the essence of Ayurvedic epistemology and terminology. So that is why this paper is important. Next slide, please. Why this is important today? Because today's Ayurvedic clinician's job, or may it be academician's job, or may it be researcher's job, we can distinctly see the crisis of Ayurvedic terminology or Ayurvedic epistemology in disease diagnostics as well as treatments. When it comes to disease diagnostics, perhaps modern pathology or physiology or all these concepts, they have overtook all the situations. So today we have some modern biomarkers and modern whatnot, all those maybe biochemical values or maybe some scans. That is what our way of diagnostics has becoming. And unfortunately, our treatment modalities are becoming value normalizing modalities instead of the very own Ayurvedic concept of treating the whole individual as a whole. Next slide, please. Even if you see how the new drug development is coming upon, the new drug development, there nobody is bothering about Ayurvedic pathophysiological basics. All what unfortunately people are doing, they are merely picking few things from the treasure of the herbs and phytochemicals. They are using the phytochemicals language, efficacy language, and that too in terms of modern biomarkers. That is how today's Ayurvedic drug development we can see. Next slide, please. Now that we all are in this historic pandemic situations, and what is there in Ayurveda for What is there in Ayurveda that is evidence-based for COVID? When it's come to this question, these are three prominent things we can see. This is one publication by Patanjali that Giloy Ghanavati has reversed SARS-CoV-2 viral spike-induced disease phenotype in a zebrafish model. Or glycyrrhizin. Glycyrrhizin is one of the phytochemicals in Yestimadu that is again having proven its efficacy to minimize the viral replication of SARS-CoV-2. And then there is much spoken drug ashwagandha, where the vithanol is now proven to minimize SARS-CoV-2 replication. So in this scenario, in this pandemic scenario, we can certainly see that Ayurvedic basic concepts are getting compromised, and we are simply using our herbs in terms of modern diagnostics. That is what the scenario today is. That is why this paper is very important. Next slide, please. And this is what I found last year. This is a page of Indian Academy of Science. You can just see the name of website. It is academic website of government. And in this page of Confluence, I found this article, Ayurvedic tridosha theory, a deconstruction. A deconstruction. So I will certainly recommend you to go through articles like this. And these are the days when scientists are proposing that let us use whatever that is useful in Ayurveda. May it be few formulations, may it be few miraculous herbs. And about those theory, about those basics, let us just deconstruct them. That is how articles are being published today. And this is indeed a time to readdress our basics. May it be Panchamahabhut, may it be Tridosha, may it be Saptadhatu, may it be Agni, or may it be Srotas. Next slide, please. So this paper speaks about the relevance of Tridosha theory in today's context, and not only with today, but the present and future. There is abstract, that in abstract, the author has put how the systems approaches. Let us very basically understand, as I can see in audience, there are few students. So what is systems approach? The systems approach is an approach that puts all things as a together. Systems approach understand things as a imbalance of so many things interplay. And this is why this is classically different from today's clinical medicine. And author is saying that from genes to cells, that is how biology is progressing. And clinical medicine is now becoming from reductionist to a holistic approach. And the framework of Vata, Pitta, Kapha is actually networked functional entities where system properties are integral components. And author has said in the abstract that an open-minded dialogue between cell-centric biology and organism-centric Ayurveda is the need of hour. Next slide, please. So for all those who are students, I guess this is very must. What systems biology is basically, before we move to actually paper, systems biology aims at the behavior of biological systems as a whole rather than behavior of components in isolation. This approach is compatible with traditional scientific methodology and reasoning and do not require weakening of scientific standards of hypothesis testing. This is very beautiful. That is why I'm quoting this author, and that is published in Frontiers in Physiology. Next slide, please. So what systems biology is, it is about the omic sciences, may it be proteomics, genomics, metaboliomics, and all these. So they are looking at the whole picture at genetic level, at biochemical level, at cellular level, at physiological level, at clinical level, with the spectrum from normal to the disease spectrum. And they come up with huge data, may it be data of proteomics, data of metaboliomics or genomics, and then they use some computational models, and then they propose the biomarkers or pathways or networks, and they put all things together, and that is what is known as systems knowledge. So this is the very basic to start with what systems biology is. Next slide, please. So as we were already talking, it's about multi-omics, genomics, transcriptomics, proteomics, metabolomics, and the putting all them things together and have integrative approach. That is what systems biology is all about. And this approach is already seen useful for uh, earlier, so yes, human microbe infection or microbiome infection or immunological diseases or host pathogen interactions, or importantly metabolic disorders, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases. For all these diseases, this approach people are already started using. Next slide, please. This must be helpful to students to understand what this is all about, because unless we don't understand this approach, then how it is having similitude with tridosha, that will be the second part to deal with. So systems biology is an approach in biomedical research to understand the picture at larger level, maybe level of organism or tissue or cell, by putting pieces together. And this is in contrast with reductionist biology. On one side, you can see reductionism, things are getting reduced, and you simply understand things in as if components. See, I have to maintain pregnancy. I am prescribing progesterone, orally progesterone, intravaginally progesterone, subcutaneous progesterone. That is what, because progesterone is the thing, and result is maintenance of pregnancy. So this is a linear dynamics. This is a linear thing, that progesterone maintaining pregnancy, insulin, sugar levels. So that is how the reductionist science and medicine works. But system science understand things at the level of dynamics or interrelationships. And that is why the medical treatments, those will be outcome on the basis of system science, will be individualized. Multidimensional use of drugs will be there. Actually, this is in Ayurveda, we are already having it. Tapyadiloha, it is Yakshmanam, Kasam, Swasam, Vishamajvaram, Tapyadiloha. It is then again having Gudacha Rogajit, or it is having Kamala Haratva. So we are the people who are already using one drug for multiple targets, or for multiple drugs for single target. That is what we already have. But that is what reductionist and system science differences. Next slide, please. So this is a paper that speaks about reductionist approach versus holistic approach, and then how systems approach has emerged. And in this slide, this paper revisits concept of tridosh and concept of guna. This is very important. And at the end, author puts a reconstruction of tridosha theory in the contemporary language, and that is why this paper is very important. Next slide, please. So let us review this article. We'll take a short review of this article. Next slide, please. In the introduction part only, author has tried to give a brief understanding of what systems biology is. Author talks about data that is coming from omics technology, and how understanding of cell is now upcoming as a system rather than some of its component, how it is emerging. Author puts in the introduction part. Then author says that this is a revolution not only in biology, but when you apply this theory to clinical medicine, that is going to offer indeed a paradigm shift. And then author speaks about the Indian component, Indian counterpart, and these are the author's view that Sankhya, Nyaya, Vaisheshika or Mimamsa, how they put their theories, they actually come up with the empirical data, their anecdotal data, and that was documented over centuries. And that is, then they have processed it, and then they have come up with the theoretical framework of Ayurveda. Next slide, please. And in the introduction only, author mentions how and what are the different levels of abstraction of the human body according to Ayurveda and modern perspective. It's about being just another perspective. So although things are one and same, but it's the different perspective. Modern science speaks in terms of genes, cells, pathways, organs, and systems, whereas Ayurvedic understanding is in terms of gunas, karma, and all can be synchronized in tridosha. That is what author talks in introductory part. Next slide, please. Then author speaks about how the concept of tridosha is based on guna and karma and not dravya. These concepts, these Ayurvedic concepts are mainly based on guna and karma. That is what author says. And very beautifully, author has quoted that being the end point of underlying complex processes, these functions are actually emergent properties of several contributing factors, and thus they are irreducible. Why and how the level of gunas and dosha Ayurveda have preferred to put things in, author has put this very beautifully. And author also comments, this is in contrast with the conventional stance of modern biology and medicine, which is based on structural hierarchy that has the atom as a fundamental component, and then cells and structures and the entire organism at the highest level, with intermediary levels like cells, organelle, tissue, and organs, etc. So that is the difference between approach author puts. Next slide, please. And this is again very important. Author then questions, this is a subtitle in this paper, what are we referring to when we talk about Vata, Pitta, Kapha? This is a subtitle author has put. And then author has mentioned about 20 gunas. Author says that 20 factors or Vimshati gunas, these are actually properties at opposite end of a continuum, and that are inherent to material bodies and are used to Ayurveda as a human system. This must be amongst the very rare documents where concept of guna is explained in a very beautiful manner. See what author is saying. These properties are actually opposite ends of a continuum. So here in a diagram you can see on one end you have ruksha, on one end you have snigdha, but it's not black and white, but the picture is colorful. And author is mentioning here, it is a continuum between two opposite ends. These properties refer not only to biophysical properties, but substances also, but also their effects on the body. Yes, author has made it clear that these are not just biophysical properties. Next slide, please. And then author has took few examples, and author has tried to make some understanding that how karmas can be associated with gunas. Say, for example, movement. So any movement will be affected by gunas like dryness as well as weight. So if the things are guru or lagu, or if it is ruksha and snigdha, these two pairs of sharir gunas or even more, they are going to affect the phenomenon of movement. So this is a beautiful attempt of author, where the author is putting one karma and then he is trying to associate it with gunas. So metabolism, it will be associated with temperature, that is ushna and tikshna, or it will be associated with amla or katu, that is the pH. or stability. Say, for example, stability. If we want stability as a karma for by our medication or by physiological way, whatever your purview may be, what can be the gunas? The guna will be viscosity, the guna will be adhesion, snigdha, alingane. That is needed. At the same time, viscosity is needed. Next slide, please. So this was the subtitle in the article. What are we speaking about when we are referring to Vata, Pitta, Kapha? After this subtitle, author moves to the another subtitle, clinical relevance of properties associated with Vata, Pitta, Kapha. And then author says that, say, temperature, pH, and metabolism. Temperature, pH, and metabolism are associated with each other in modern physiology. But no precedent exists in modern biology or medicine for using these properties like dryness or viscosity to describe physiological functions. So author has perhaps put a very beautiful lacuna of modern science, that although there is plethora of literature available in modern physiology about, say, temperature or about pH or about metabolism, but it was not used in terms of something like physiological functions and in terms of gunas. Modern medicine has not yet tried to attempt. Nevertheless, these parameters are well studied for their association with non-physiological functions too. Author also mentions. Next slide, please. And then author has took one example, the example of dryness, and then he has tried to understand this example. Dryness plays a dominant role in surface friction. It is associated with movement and discussed in great detail in the subjects like, say, fluid dynamics, engineering mechanics, and whatnot. Friction, again, is a universally influencing factor affecting the motion of objects in contact, may it be mechanical systems or may it be biological systems. So all movements in an organism, from subtle, say, cellular level movement up to the gross level movements, walking of organism itself, are also influenced by friction, which in turn is affected by dryness. And for example, friction between two joints will affect the movement. So what will be the gunas playing a role? So dryness, viscosity, and adhesion used in Ayurveda are increasingly being studied for their physiological role and clinical relevance. Next slide, please. And to understand these things, say, for example, author has quoted dryness at cellular level causes changes in cell motility, cell shape, adhesions among cells, and osmosis, and all of which have physiological and clinical implications. And if you, I have particularly put these 4 citations for all these 4 affected things as author has mentioned. What author has mentioned? The dryness at cellular level is going to change what? Is going to change cell motility, shape, adhesion, and osmosis. And for this, author has reviewed these 4 papers. And if you see them, they are the papers belonging to basic biology and so many other things rather than typical what medicos refer to. So physiology is all about basic biology. And author, being from his basic sciences background, has taken enormous efforts and he has put all things together using basics from basic sciences. Next slide, please. Continuing the dryness as an example, author quotes that studies have shown that change in cell shape is associated with malignant transformation of normal cells. And 1 minute before, we have seen that dryness is actually leading to change in a cell shape, and this is associated with malignancy. Pathologic dryness at systems level is referred as medical dryness in conventional medicine. It would be keratoconjunctivitis or xerostomia or atrophic vaginitis or xerodermia. For instance, so and so author has reported that dryness as a causative factor for increased oral mucosal friction resulting in chronic cough. Next slide, please. So this is how author has took an example of dryness, ruksha, and author has reviewed its implications right from micro level up to the macro levels. And then author has also spoke about few other gunas. Say, for example, more parameters like lubrication and viscosity will also have clinical implications. Viscosity of cellular cytoplasm acting on hydrodynamic forces and affecting macromolecular as well as cellular motions can lead to functional changes. Author is reporting earlier evidences. Viscosity of blood affects the blood flow. These days, we are seeing that in COVID ward, if D dimer is in say 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, you will be coming to know that nurse is complaining that blood is so thick that it is difficult to uh, take in that what we say for the bulbs and everything. So viscoelasticity in the synovial fluid is again influencing movements at systems level. Next slide, please. So this is how author has took one example of movement and how dryness and other gunas are going to affect it. Then author comes in the makes one more subtitle, that is systems properties associated with Vata Pitta Kapha as biomarkers. And then author says that Vata Pitta Kapha are important functions at various levels and can be considered as biomarkers. They themselves can be considered as biomarkers for systems properties. It's not that Ayurveda people, they are running behind few things that this can be the marker. But author is saying the system properties, the properties mentioned of the Vata Pitta Kapha, they themselves can be used as markers. As we just saw how dryness is making its role in, say, malignancy or movement or at so many levels. So although several underlying complex processes are responsible for these functions and properties, the framework of Vata Pitta Kapha allows describing these without focusing on individual components involved in the processes. This is the beauty again. Although there are 20 gunas, but they are again synchronized in terms of tridosha. Although we speak about Panchamahabhuta, but again the level, utility level is Rasabheda and Doshabheda only. So these perspectives of Vata Pitta Kapha provide a seamless view of functional endpoints and systems properties across different levels of organization, and they offer a broader scope to understand the health and disease. Next slide, please. Now we'll move to a few important figures and tables. Of course, there are no tables. This is a review paper. This is a thought leadership article, some kind of. Next slide, please. Yes. This is how author has tried to understand dosha gunas. V1, V2, V3, V4, V5, V6, V7. They stand for, say, Ruksha, Shita, Chala, Lagu, Vishada, Khara, Sukshma. Then P1 to P7. They are again Ushna, Tikshna, Drava, Amla, Katu, Sarasa, Sneha. And then K1 to K7. So that is how author has put all the gunas. And in this functional module, what author is labeling this figure as, author is trying to understand the interrelationship of dosha gunas amongst it, not amongst it, but within it. See, for example, let us take example of V7. V7 is associated with V3 and V4. So what V7 is? V7 is Sukshma. Vivarane Sukshma. This Vivarane Sukshma phenomenon author is putting is associated with V3 and V4, that is Chala and Lagu. Or say V4. V4 is Lagu. What Lagu is interconnected with? Lagu is interconnected with number 1, V1, that is Ruksha, V3, that is Chala, and V7, that is Sukshma. So this is perhaps the first understanding in Ayurvedic field where some author has tried to understand the interplay or the interconnection of dosha gunas. Not first, yes, the Phadkeji, the prominent book, the regional prominent book in Marathi in the state of Maharashtra, Goa Phadkeji, he has mentioned at places that how one guna is associated with another guna. He mentions that dryness, when it becomes severe, that can become khara or that can become vishada. So that is how the interrelationship between dosha gunas is attempted. But such a precise understanding such a precise understanding is perhaps the first one in Ayurvedic field, as I can see being Ayurvedic physiology person last 15 years. So this is how author has, I will recommend you all to go through this paper later on. Next slide, please. And then author has tried to understand, he has took, she has took just one example and how that can be interconnected with how that one karma can be interconnected with rest of all. Say, for example, rise in temperature or rise in Ushna Guna, what this will lead to pH, what this will, or Amla or Katu, what this will lead to penetrative power, that is Tikshna, what this will lead to fluidity, a rise in temperature. Sasneha, what will happen to these Pitta Gunas? Or rise in temperature, what this will lead to Vata Gunas, whether dryness will be increased or not. What will happen to Shita Guna of the Vata Dosh? What will happen to motility of Vata Dosh? What will happen to, author has ignited our minds that how interconnections of these gunas and the functions we need to assess. We need to actually plot them. Being from the basic science background, author is from the basic sciences background. We have seen she is MSc Physics and PhD from Cambridge in Physics. So that typical approach we can see reflected in this paper. Next slide, please. And this is the last diagram where author puts intra and interconnection within and between connections of Vata, Pitta, Kapha gunas. I guess the diagram is on next slide perhaps. Yes, here it is. Here author has mentioned the topology of connections between Vata, Pitta, Kapha. So all the Vata gunas, they are associated with Vata gunas. That is mentioned by the blue lines. Pitta gunas associated with Pitta gunas by red, and Kapha with Kapha associated with Kapha associated with say green color, and rest all they have made with the dark gray line. So we can just see some example. Say for example P5. So P5 is associated with P1, but at the same time it is associated with K5 also, and it is associated with V4 also. So it is P5 that is associated with P6, that is fine, that is within Pitta, but Vata 4 and Kapha 5. Can we please go 2 slides before? One more slide before. So P5 was Katu, and that Katu is associated with what again? V4, yes, V4 I am able to recollect. It is Lagu. So Katu Rasa in Rasabhediya chapter, they have mentioned as Lagu. So that is how author has tried to put back to our own slide, please, ma'am. Next slide, please. Yes. So that is how author has tried to put the interplay of all dosha gunas. And this is very important. It's not 20 gunas interplay, but because guna is one level, but our whole vyavahar is going in terms of dosha and rasa bhed only. So this is a beautiful diagram where author has made us understanding of intra and interplay of dosha gunas. Next slide, please. So figure 3 speaks about intra and interconnections. The associations can be like using information from current scientific studies. Say, for example, correlation between dryness and motility, temperature and viscosity, pH and temperature, dryness and viscoelastic properties. So author is giving us so many insights, and instead of just prescribing something, how thoroughly we need to understand all these things. That is what insights author is giving here. So correlation between heaviness and stability, weight and mobility, lightness and fluidity, mobility and fluidity, dravatva and chalatva, how they can be associated with. Next slide, please. And then at the in the latter part of the manuscript, author is saying that why he had chosen or why she had chosen this Vata Pitta Kapha as a common platform, or the understanding of gunas in terms of Vata Pitta Kapha. It is simply because disease is a system contribution in Ayurveda. That is what Ayurvedic beauty is. Ayurvedic terminology has Vata Pitta Kapha as a background for its physiology, for its pathology, for diagnostics, for lifestyle activities, for symptoms. You can segregate in Vata Pitta Kapha, your treatment strategies, your Ritucharya, your food ingredients, your animal and plant origin things. All of these, they are actually mentioned in terms of dosha only. Next slide, please. So theory to clinical applications, Vata Pitta Kapha is a common platform for everything, for diagnostics, for therapeutics, and Ayurveda therapeutic strategy is therefore comprehensive. It addresses all abiotic causative factors, and it incorporates everything, all parameters like medicine, diet, activities, etc. Next slide, please. And then at the end, author has take one example of continuing his example of dryness. Author speaks about example of osteoarthritis and how which are the gunas there, say lubrication K3, dryness, or K4 viscosity that is lost, and how conventional medicine also opines the same, and how this viscoelastic property of synovial fluid is actually seen reduced, and how we actually see this is some kind of degenerative phenomenon, and that is why systemic increase in dryness is associated with all these things. And then author speaks about treatment of osteoarthritis, local and systemic. Next slide, please. So in the conclusion, author speaks that while conventional medicine simplifies complexity by reductionism, Ayurveda manages human complexities by systems approach, using its broad-based theories. By networking system properties Vata Pitta Kapha provides us a new and comprehensive paradigm for managing health in an integrated manner. And these are the beautiful words of author. From a contemporary scientific viewpoint, the concept of network of system properties, that is what Vata Pitta Kapha are. The concept of network of system properties applicable at multiple scales in organism is actually going to offer us a new approach to understand biological system, and we can come up with new markers and paradigm shift in treatment and prevention. Next slide, please. So this is how this is a beautiful paper, and if we have to analyze this paper, next slide, please. I will just say this paper is this is a very important paper that is actually putting light for this is like that guiding lamp. This paper is important for us because in our academics we can see today Ayurveda students, they are coming from the background of ICSE, CBSE, and with better understanding of modern sciences. So that is why this paper is important. This is perhaps the pioneered approach of intra and interrelationship of properties of doshas. That is what the beauty of this paper is. This model can be applied to the 63 Vedas. Yes, we have that concept of Vata Vriddha, Pitta Kshina, and Kapha Madhyama. Somewhere in Charak Sutrastan, we read it, we forget it, we just pass Charak Samhita and then we skip these things. But if we come up with such an algorithm or with such a mathematical model, and if we are able to apply to those 63 Vedas, that can be indeed very helpful. This paper is like guiding lamp for that it is for ships at seashore. And further scope, characteristics and karmas can be further elaborated. So that can be the further scope for this paper. Next slide, please. Shortcomings, of course, the author is stalwart in the field of Ayurveda. But yes, we can see that mechanosensing is one important physiological phenomenon. That was something was missing when movement physiology was going on. And how to understand Vikruti Visham Samvaya phenomenons with these mathematical models. That is going to be a big question. And author has not mentioned this because for all the Prakriti Samvaya things, we can use these mathematical models and like the things. But what about Vikruti Visham Samvaya? What about all those exceptions, say Shunti, that is Katu, but that is Madhur Vipaki. So all those exceptions and all those Vikruti Visham Samvaya, how to apply such a mathematical models to them is a big question when we will be actually putting applications from these papers. So that is what shortcoming may be. Next slide, please. So I'm just putting this is one of my paper, Pathophysiology of COVID-19. So again, I'm concluding I'm again coming to my own pratidnya that tridosha theory or our basics, that is what the very important thing is. So this is what we had wrote in our review paper on COVID, that the initial phase is Vata Kapha with Pittanubandha, but the latter aggravated stage of immune response is Vata Pittach. So we need to, or alveolar damage and coagulopathies indicate Rakta Dhatu. So unless and until we don't speak about the modern diseases in Ayurvedic terms, simply coming up with some Ayurvedic drug and saying that this is useful for COVID, or saying that this was useful in SARS-CoV-2 model replication and something like that, that is not going to be helpful, gentlemen. Our epistemology is our balasthana, it is our very big strength. Next slide, please. And this paper is very important because this paper has readdressed tridosha theory, what was fading away in the as modern sciences were progressing, what this theory was fading away, author has readdressed this. And now the session is open for the discussion, for moderators' comments, and for the questions. Okay, next slide, please. I will just conclude with this thing also. Yes. What are the similar papers? So similar papers, this is a guest editorial in the journals Annals of Ayurvedic Medicine, volume 3, issue so and so, 2014. This was by the prominent interdisciplinary personality, Professor Dr. Bhushan Patwardhanji. He has wrote this guest editorial for AAM in 2014, where he has titled this as Ayurveda and Systems Biology. And just see, he is starting his paper with this quote from Guyton and Hall, the book for medical physiology. What Guyton says, indeed, the human body is much more than sum of its parts, and life relies upon this total function, and not just functions of individual body parts in isolation from one another. That is what Guyton sees. And Bhushan Patwardhanji has very aptly quoted it to start his editorial. Because see, even let me give you today's example. We can see so many COVID patients, they are there on ICU and ventilator for 20 days, 21 days, and then one fine day they become SARS-CoV-2 negative, but still they are O2 dependent, and then they are discharged with that oxygen cylinder. Or even few are finally at their home, and then abruptly one fine day they got MI and they are dying with cardiac complications, or diabetic people are going in renal complications. So that in toto thinking, pranavanam srotasam hriday moolam mahasrotascha. When we speak about prana, we speak about prana rakta pitta, we speak about say prana and pranava srotas is about fufusa as well as hridaya, and one arm is there in mahasrotas. So that is what in function totality. So forgive me, I went into COVID because COVID is everywhere. We are in this pandemic, and I just moved away. But this is a beautiful paper. This is actually editorial, so this is not paper. And in this paper, author has spoke about Pinda Brahmanda theory, and then author has put light on reduction and holism, and how systems biology is relevant in the purview of reductionism and holism. That is what this paper talks about. So this is a similar paper if we get to search. And then there are so many papers, but those are on Chinese medicine and network pharmacology. That how Chinese medicine is similar with systems approach and things. But so far as Ayurveda is concerned, these are only two papers. So thank you. Any queries and comments by the moderator? Hello? 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 Hello, over to moderator, please. Hello.
Recording in progress.
Hello. 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 Perhaps the moderator has some connectivity issues. Are there any questions? You can type in chat box or we can conclude the session. I guess there are no questions. How do we take this forward, this approach? So that is what I was discussing, that we need to put all the functions and all the gunas in toto. So as author has given beautiful example of dryness, we can just take more examples, or not only example, or not only for academic purpose, but even for practicing purpose. Say for example, Grahani patient comes to us. There is a irritable bowel syndrome. The bowel motility is more. So have we yet understood or tried to understand that motility can be associated with sukshma, motility associated with amla, motility associated with snigdha, motility associated with say ushna and shita. So that is how the basic sciences, because this author is from basic sciences background, there is a lot to scope to understand to make our basic understandings very better.
Hello.
So that is the way we can take this approach forward.
Hello, sir.
Okay, so I guess author had some perhaps connectivity issues, and then there are no questions. Thank you all. I thank you all on behalf of India chapter of Research Council and the moderator. Thank you. Thank you very much.